Your emotions are not truth. Let me say that again. Your emotions are not truth. They are impulses, automatic, primitive, designed for survival, not success. And every time you react without thinking, you hand over your power. You let a moment of anger ruin relationships. You let fear kill opportunities. You let anxiety rewrite your future. But here's the reality the top 1% already know. The strongest person in the room is not the loudest. It's the one who doesn't react. The one who can feel everything, but control their actions. The one who pauses, chooses, and dominates the moment instead of being dominated by it. This audiobook will teach you that skill. When you finish this, you will not be the same person. You will think differently, respond differently, live differently. You will finally take back the power you've been giving away your entire life. Chapter 1. Stop reacting. The hidden cost of emotional impulses. Your reactions are costing you more than you realize, more than you can measure, more than you can afford. Every emotional impulse you obey comes with a price. Lost opportunities, damaged relationships, ruined reputations, and a weakened sense of self. And the worst part? Most people never calculate the cost. They live their entire lives emotionally bankrupt, and they don't even know why. You need to understand this. Every reaction has a price. Every reaction is a choice. Non-reaction is power. Let me repeat that, because this is the foundation of everything you're about to learn. Every reaction is a choice. You are not controlled by the trigger. You are controlled by what you decide to do after the trigger. That's where your freedom lives. That's where your discipline is built. Most people don't react because they're emotional. They react because they're untrained. They've never learned to pause, to breathe, to think, to wait. They receive a stimulus and they fire back instantly, like a machine with a broken safety switch. Someone insults them, they explode. Someone disagrees, they defend. Someone disrespects them, they attack. And afterward, they convince themselves they had no choice. But that is a lie. You always have a choice. Let's talk about the cost of not knowing that. The cost of one emotional moment. Think about the last time you sent a message you regretted, the last angry email, the last defensive text, the last sarcastic comment. It took you 5 seconds to send it, but you felt the consequences for weeks, months, maybe years. People lose jobs because of 5 seconds of anger. People lose relationships because of one impulsive reaction. People burn bridges because they couldn't sit with a feeling for 60 seconds. This is the hidden cost of emotional impulses. You lose long-term value because you couldn't control a short-term feeling. That's the trade emotional people keep making, and it's the worst trade you can ever make. You think you're expressing yourself. You think you're defending yourself. You think you're just being honest. But what you're really doing is giving away your power. Every time you react without control, you surrender your future to your feelings. You must understand this. Your emotions want immediate relief, not long-term results. Your emotions want comfort, not growth. Your emotions want release, not progress. And if you obey them, you pay the price. What emotional reactivity steals from you? Emotional reactions steal from your success. They steal from your confidence. They steal from your peace. You think reacting lets the pressure out, but it actually traps you deeper in emotional patterns you don't know how to escape. Here's what you lose every time you react impulsively. 1. You lose opportunities. You miss promotions because you couldn't handle criticism. You miss connections because you took something personally. You miss growth because you avoided discomfort. 2. You lose relationships, not because people are cruel, but because people cannot trust someone who is emotionally unstable. Nobody wants to walk on eggshells around you. Nobody wants to guess which version of you they will encounter today. 3. You lose credibility. People don't listen to the loudest person. They listen to the calmest. People don't respect the reactive one. They respect the composed one. You think reacting shows strength, but it signals weakness, the inability to control yourself. And finally, 4. You lose yourself. Every time you react automatically, you reinforce a version of yourself you no longer want to be. You strengthen a pattern that keeps you stuck. You repeat a story of emotional instability, and your brain learns that this is normal. But it doesn't have to be normal for you. Not anymore. Not after today. The truth most people avoid. Most people will go their entire lives blaming others for how they feel. They will blame their boss, their partner, their childhood, their stress, their schedule. They will blame everything except the one thing that actually matters, their reaction. You can't control the world. You can't control other people. You can't control circumstances. But you can always control the space between the trigger and the response. That space is the difference between emotional chaos and emotional mastery, between regret and discipline, between weakness and power. This is the key. This is always the key. Your reaction determines your reality. Real examples you must learn from. Let me give you real-world consequences of emotional reactivity so you understand how expensive it truly is. Example 1. The lost promotion. A man spends years building a reputation at work. One day, his manager gives him feedback he doesn't like. Instead of pausing, instead of listening, he cuts the manager off, gets defensive, and storms out of the office. He thinks he stood up for himself. He thinks he spoke his truth. What he actually did was communicate. I cannot handle pressure. I cannot handle critique. I cannot be trusted with more responsibility. He lost the promotion, not because he wasn't skilled, but because he wasn't emotionally controlled. Example 2. The broken relationship. A woman reacts to every small misunderstanding. She raises her voice. She assumes the worst. She argues from emotion instead of clarity. She doesn't communicate. She reacts. Over time, trust fades. Safety fades. Connection fades. Not because there wasn't love, but because the emotional instability slowly poisoned the relationship. One emotional reaction at a time. Example 3. The self-sabotaged goal. Someone commits to change. They want to be disciplined. They want to grow. But the moment discomfort appears, the moment fear, doubt, boredom, or frustration shows up, they react. They quit. They avoid. They fall back into old habits because their emotional impulse is stronger than their commitment. These patterns destroy lives, not because people are weak, but because people never learned the skill of emotional control. And yes, emotional control is a skill you can learn, a skill you can build, a skill that can change everything. Non-reaction is power. When you refuse to react, people notice. When you refuse to react, chaos loses its influence. When you refuse to react, you see everything more clearly. You make better decisions because you're not driven by emotion. You're guided by intention. This is not about suppressing your emotions. It's not about pretending you don't feel anything. It's about choosing your response instead of being controlled by your impulses. You have a choice. You always have a choice. And the moment you understand that, you begin to reclaim your life. Your training starts here. From this point forward, every time you feel triggered, overwhelmed, insulted, dismissed, ignored, or disrespected, I want you to remember one line. Every reaction has a price. If you react, you pay. If you breathe, you pause, you think, you wait, you keep your power. This chapter is the foundation. This chapter is the wake-up call. You cannot master your emotions until you understand what emotional impulses are costing you. You cannot build discipline until you accept responsibility for your reactions, and you cannot rise to your full potential until you take back control of the space between stimulus and response. You do not need permission to be calm. You do not need permission to be disciplined. You do not need permission to hold your power. You decide. You choose. This is the key. You've seen the cost of emotional reactions. Now it's time to understand why they happen in the first place. Why your brain is wired to sabotage your calm, your clarity, and your control. Chapter 2. Your brain is wired against you. And how to rewire it. Your brain is not designed to make you successful. Let me say that again, slowly and clearly. Your brain is not designed to make you successful. It is designed to keep you alive. And survival is not the same thing as growth. Survival is not the same thing as clarity. Survival is not the same thing as emotional control. This is where most people fail. They assume their thoughts are intelligent. They assume their feelings are accurate. They assume their impulses are meaningful. They trust their brain by default. And that mistake costs them their discipline, their focus, and their future. You must understand this truth early. Your brain is automatic. You must become intentional. That is the key. Why your brain reacts before you think. Your brain evolved in a world of predators, hunger, and immediate danger. If something moved suddenly, you reacted instantly, or you died. If something threatened your tribe, you fought or fled, without debate. That wiring still exists, but the world has changed. Today, your brain reacts to emails like they're threats, to criticism like it's an attack, to discomfort like it's danger. Your heart races, your breath shortens, your muscles tense, and before logic arrives, emotion takes control. This is called amygdala hijack. The amygdala is the emotional alarm system of your brain. Its job is speed, not accuracy. When it detects a threat, real or imagined, it floods your body with stress hormones and bypasses the thinking part of your brain. This means something critical. Your emotional reaction happens before conscious thought. That's why you say things you regret. That's why you react before you decide. That's why later you think, why did I do that? Because your primitive brain acted first. And here's the hard truth. If you don't train yourself, you will always obey the loudest signal, not the wisest one. Emotional flooding and the loss of control. When the emotional brain takes over, your thinking brain goes offline. This is emotional flooding. In this state, you cannot reason clearly. You cannot see options. You cannot think long-term. You become reactive, defensive, impulsive. You think you're choosing, but you're not. You are being driven. This is why telling people to calm down never works. Their thinking brain is temporarily shut down. And until you learn how to interrupt this process, you will repeat the same emotional mistakes again and again. But here's the good news. You are not broken. You are untrained. This is not about flaws. It's about discipline. The difference between automatic and intentional. Most people live automatically. They wake up and react to their phone. They react to traffic. They react to stress. They react to people. Their day controls them. Their emotions control them. Their impulses control them. Disciplined people live intentionally. They feel the emotion, but they don't obey it. They notice the trigger, but they pause. They create space between stimulus and response. You have a choice. You always have a choice, but only if you slow the moment down. That space is where power lives. That space is where discipline is built. That space is where your future is decided. How to start rewiring your brain. You do not rewire your brain with motivation. You rewire it with repetition under control. Every time you interrupt an automatic reaction, you weaken the old pathway. Every time you pause instead of reacting, you strengthen a new one. This is how rewiring works. Here are the core principles you must apply. 1. Label the reaction. The moment emotion rises, silently label it. This is anger. This is fear. This is frustration. Labeling activates the thinking brain. It pulls you out of autopilot. This is the key. 2. Delay the response. You don't need to react immediately. You don't need their permission to pause. Silence is not weakness. Delay is discipline. Count your breaths. Relax your shoulders. Slow your body before you speak. Your body leads your mind. 3. Choose the long-term outcome. Ask one question. What response serves my future self? Not your ego, not your pride, not your emotion, your future. This is how intentional people live. Why most people never change. Most people never rewire their brain because they justify their reactions. They say, that's just how I am. They say, anyone would have reacted that way. They say, I had a reason. But reasons don't create results. Discipline does. You don't rise because your emotions are justified. You rise because your responses are controlled. It's not about how you feel. It's about what you do despite how you feel. The new rule you must adopt from now on. This is your rule. Feeling something does not mean acting on it. Say it again. Feeling something does not mean acting on it. You can feel anger and remain silent. You can feel fear and move forward. You can feel pressure and stay calm. That is emotional mastery. This is not suppression. This is command. Your mind is a tool. You must learn to use it. Repetition creates control. Every disciplined person you admire has trained this skill. They didn't eliminate emotion. They mastered response. They became intentional where others stayed automatic. They slowed down where others panicked. They chose where others reacted. And you can do the same. You have a choice. This is the key. You don't need their permission. It's not about flaws. It's about discipline. Transition to Chapter 3. You now understand the enemy. You know why your brain reacts and how to interrupt it. But awareness alone is not mastery. Next, you'll learn the levels of emotional control and why most people never move beyond the weakest one. Chapter 3. The 4 levels of emotional mastery. Most people think emotional control is binary. They believe you either have it or you don't. That's false. Emotional mastery is not a switch. It is a progression. There are levels to how you experience emotions. There are levels to how you respond. And where you live on these levels determines the quality of your life, your relationships, your income, your reputation, your inner peace. This is the key. You are always operating at one of 4 levels. You don't float between them randomly. You live at one, and under pressure, you default to the lowest level you've trained. You have a choice, but only if you know the levels. Let's break them down. Level 1, impulse. Feel it and react. This is where most people live. At level 1, there is no space, no pause, no thinking. Something happens. You react. A comment triggers you. You snap back. An email feels disrespectful. You fire off a response. A partner says something that hits your insecurity. You argue, you defend, you attack. At level 1, emotions drive behavior. Always. You don't choose your response. Your nervous system chooses for you. And here's the brutal truth. Level 1 people believe they are being real. They say, that's just how I feel. They say, I'm just being honest. No, you're being automatic. It's not about flaws, it's about discipline. At level 1, every reaction has a cost. Lost trust, lost respect, lost opportunities. And the worst part? You justify it afterward. You don't need their permission to be calm. But at level 1, you give everyone permission to control you. This is survival mode, not leadership mode, not success mode. This is where you start, but you do not stay here. Level 2, awareness. You notice the reaction. Level 2 is where change begins. At this level, you still feel the emotion, the anger, the anxiety, the urge to react. But now, something new happens. You notice it. You feel your heart rate increase. You feel your jaw tighten. You feel the impulse rise. And you think, I'm triggered. This is the key. Awareness creates space. In a work meeting, someone challenges your idea. You feel the urge to interrupt, but you notice it. In a relationship, a familiar argument pattern starts. You feel yourselves preparing your defense, but you notice it. Awareness doesn't stop the emotion. It simply names it, and that alone is powerful. Because emotions thrive in the dark. They weaken when exposed to attention. Awareness is step 1, always. But let's be clear, awareness alone does not equal control. At level 2, many people still react. They just react knowingly. They say, I knew I shouldn't have said that, but they say, I saw it coming, but I couldn't stop myself. That's progress, but it's not mastery. You have a choice, but you haven't learned how to use it yet. Level 3, control. You pause. This is where power starts. At level 3, awareness is followed by a pause. Not suppression, not denial. A pause. You feel the emotion. You notice it, and then you stop. You don't send the message. You don't raise your voice. You don't react immediately. This pause might be 5 seconds. It might be 5 minutes. It might be a full night. But it changes everything. In a heated argument, you say nothing. In a stressful moment at work, you breathe and delay your response. In a triggering situation, you walk away temporarily. This is discipline. You are telling your nervous system, I'm in charge. This is the moment where most people fail, because pausing feels uncomfortable. Your brain wants relief. Your ego wants expression. Your emotions want release. But here's the truth. Immediate expression feels good now. Long-term control feels good forever. It's not about being passive. It's about being strategic. You don't need their permission to pause. You don't owe anyone your immediate reaction. This is the key. Control is not silence forever. Control is timing. And timing separates amateurs from masters. Level 4, mastery. You choose strategically. This is the highest level. Very few people live here consistently, but everyone who wins does. At level 4, you don't just pause. You choose. You ask one question. What response serves my long-term outcome? Not your ego, not your mood, your outcome. In a conflict, you may respond calmly, or you may choose silence, or you may choose firmness without emotion. In a stressful situation, you may act decisively, or you may delay intentionally. The difference is simple. You are no longer reacting to the moment. You are acting for the future. This is emotional intelligence at its highest level. You still feel emotions, but they no longer dictate your behavior. You use them as data, not commands. It's not about flaws. It's about discipline. This level builds trust. This level builds authority. This level builds quiet confidence. People feel it around you. They don't know why. They just know you're steady. And steadiness wins. How to move up the levels. You don't jump from impulse to mastery. You train upward, daily. You practice noticing, then pausing, then choosing. You slow your reactions. You stop explaining yourself. You stop justifying emotional decisions. You remind yourself, you have a choice. This is the key. You don't need their permission. Every time you choose non-reaction, you rewire yourself. Every time you pause, you build strength. Every time you choose strategically, you step into mastery. Chapter transition. You now understand the levels. You know where you are, and you know where you're going. But knowing the levels is not enough, because when emotions hit fast and hard, when your body is flooded, when logic disappears, you need a tool. You need a method. You've learned what mastery looks like. Now you need to learn how to stop yourself in real time. That's next. Chapter 4. The Stop Method. Instant control in any situation. Up to this point, you've learned something critical. You've learned why you react. You've learned how emotional mastery works. You've learned the levels. But knowledge alone does not save you in the moment. When the trigger hits, when the pressure spikes, when your body floods with emotion, you don't need theory. You need a weapon. This chapter gives you that weapon. It's simple, it's fast, and it works under pressure. It's called the Stop Method. This is the key, why you need a method. Emotional reactions don't ask for permission. They arrive suddenly. They hijack your body. They compress time. That's why telling yourself to stay calm doesn't work. Your nervous system doesn't respond to wishes. It responds to structure. You don't rise to intention. You fall to training. The Stop Method gives your brain a script to follow when chaos hits. And remember this, you have a choice, but only if you create a pause. The reaction dies in the pause. Stop. This is the most important step. Stop means interrupt the reaction. Not forever, not dramatically, just stop. You stop speaking. You stop typing. You stop moving toward action. In a confrontation, you close your mouth. In an argument, you don't fire back. In a panic moment, you freeze your behavior. This is discipline. Your body wants movement. Your emotions want expression. But you say no. You don't need their permission to stop. You don't owe anyone your immediate response. This is the key. Every reaction feels urgent. Very few are important. Stop breaks the spell. Take a breath. Next, one deliberate breath. Not shallow, not rushed. Slow, controlled. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Why? Because breath controls physiology, and physiology controls emotion. You cannot think clearly in a panicked body. That breath tells your nervous system, I am not in danger. In an insult situation, the breath prevents escalation. In anxiety, the breath slows the spiral. In anger, the breath lowers the intensity. You have a choice, and the breath gives it back to you. This is not weakness. It's leverage. Observe. Now you observe. Not the other person, not the situation, yourself. You notice what's happening internally. My chest is tight. My thoughts are racing. I want to attack. I want to escape. No judgment, no storytelling, just data. This is where most people fail. They observe the trigger, not the reaction. But mastery comes from internal awareness. It's not about flaws. It's about discipline. When you observe the emotion, you separate from it. You stop being inside the emotion and start watching it. And emotions lose power when watched. P. Proceed with intention. Only now do you proceed, not react. Proceed. You choose your response deliberately. You ask one question: what response serves my long-term outcome? Not what feels good now. Not what proves a point. Not what defends ego. Outcome. Sometimes the right response is calm speech. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's walking away. Sometimes it's firm boundaries. But it's chosen, not automatic. This is the key. Reaction is fast. Response is intentional. Stop. In real situations, let's make this practical. Scenario 1. Insult or disrespect. Someone makes a cutting remark. Your impulse: fire back. Stop. You stop speaking. You breathe. You observe the urge to defend. Then you choose. Maybe you respond calmly. Maybe you say nothing. Maybe you disengage. And suddenly, you hold the power. The reaction dies in the pause. Scenario 2. Workplace stress. An email triggers anger. Your impulse: type immediately. Stop. Hands off the keyboard. Breath. Observe the frustration. Then you proceed later. And that delay saves your reputation. Every reaction has a price. Every pause is an investment. Scenario 3. Panic or anxiety. Your heart races. Your thoughts spiral. Stop. You stop moving. You breathe slowly. You observe the fear without feeding it. Then you proceed with logic. And panic loses its grip. Why stop works? Because it interrupts the emotional loop. Emotion, reaction, consequence. Stop breaks the chain. It inserts consciousness where there was automation. Your brain is automatic. You must become intentional. This is discipline in action, not suppression, not denial. Command. Training the stop method. This does not become natural overnight. You practice it in small moments. Minor irritations, small frustrations, daily triggers. You build the muscle. You remind yourself, you have a choice. This is the key. You don't need their permission. Every successful pause rewires your nervous system, and over time, the pause becomes automatic. That's mastery. The deeper truth. Most people think emotional control is about calmness. It's not. It's about timing. The strongest people feel deeply. They just don't react immediately. They delay. They choose. And that delay changes everything. Chapter conclusion. You now have a tool you can use anywhere. Any conversation, any conflict, any emotional storm. The stop method gives you control in real time. But control in the moment is only half the equation. Because life doesn't test you once. It tests you repeatedly. To win long-term, you need more than control. You need resilience. You need a nervous system that gets stronger under pressure. That's next. Chapter 5. Advanced Emotional Regulation for High-Performance Thinking. Control in the moment is powerful. But elite performance requires more. Anyone can pause once. Few can consistently regulate their internal state under pressure. This chapter is about that difference. This is where emotional control stops being defensive and becomes strategic. This is where you stop surviving emotions and start using them. This is the key. Why regulation comes before response. Most people try to fix behavior first. They try to say the right thing, do the right thing, act calm. But behavior is downstream. Your internal state always leads. If your internal state is chaotic, your decisions will be chaotic. If your internal state is stable, your thinking becomes sharp. That's why elite performers regulate first. Then they respond. Say it again. Regulate first, respond second. This is discipline. Technique 1. Cognitive reframing. Events do not control you, interpretations do. Two people experience the same pressure. One collapses, one sharpens. The difference is the frame. Cognitive reframing means changing the meaning you assign to an event. Pressure becomes challenge. Criticism becomes feedback. Failure becomes data. You don't lie to yourself. You choose a useful frame. Ask this question immediately. What is the most empowering interpretation of this situation? You have a choice, and that choice determines your emotional state. It's not about flaws, it's about discipline. Technique 2. Emotional labeling. Unlabeled emotion controls behavior. Labeled emotion loses intensity. This is neuroscience, not motivation. When you name the emotion, your prefrontal cortex activates and your amygdala calms. So you label it clearly. This is anger. This is fear. This is frustration. Not stories, not justification, just naming. This creates distance. You stop being inside the emotion and start managing it. This is the key. Technique 3. Thought interruption. Unchecked thoughts fuel emotional spirals. One thought becomes 10. 10 becomes certainty. Elite performers interrupt early. They catch the first unproductive thought and cut it off. You say, internally, firmly, stop. Then you redirect. You replace the thought with a command. What is the next controlled action? What is within my influence right now? You don't argue with the thought. You override it. You don't need their permission, not even from your own mind. Technique 4. Executive decision mapping. This is advanced and powerful. When pressure hits, most people decide emotionally. Elite performers decide structurally. They pre-map decisions. Before stress arrives, they define what matters, what doesn't, what outcomes they prioritize, what behaviors are non-negotiable. So when pressure comes, they don't improvise, they execute. Emotion no longer negotiates with behavior. This is discipline at scale. How elite performers use these tools. Athletes don't calm down randomly. They regulate intentionally. They reframe pressure as readiness. They label nerves as activation. They interrupt doubt immediately. They execute pre-planned routines. Executives do the same. So do elite operators. So do disciplined leaders. They don't feel less emotion. They manage it better. What you must stop doing. Stop believing emotions are instructions. They are signals. Stop reacting immediately. Stop trusting intensity. Stop explaining impulsive behavior. You have a choice. Every time. This is the key. What you must start doing. Start regulating before responding. Start naming emotions. Start reframing pressure. Start interrupting thoughts early. Start building decision structures in advance. This is how calm becomes reliable. The long-term effect. When regulation becomes habit, something shifts. You stop fearing pressure. You stop avoiding conflict. You stop second-guessing yourself. Because your internal state is no longer fragile. You become consistent, and consistency builds confidence. Not arrogance, not bravado, quiet confidence. The deeper truth. Most people chase confidence. Elite performers build regulation. Confidence is the result. It's not about feeling good. It's about functioning well. Under stress, under judgment, under uncertainty. That's mastery. Chapter conclusion. You now understand how to regulate your internal state at a high level. You can reframe meaning. You can label emotion. You can interrupt destructive thought. You can execute under pressure. But regulation alone is still not enough. Because life doesn't just test you once. It wears you down. To remain calm long-term, you must build emotional resilience. a system that strengthens you through stress. You've learned to regulate. Now it's time to become unbreakable. Chapter 6: Building Emotional Resilience for Long-Term Success. Chapter 6: Build emotional resilience that makes you anti-fragile. Control helps you survive moments. Resilience determines who you become over years. This chapter is not about calming down once. It's about becoming the kind of person who does not break. This is where emotional mastery turns permanent. This is the key. Why most people are emotionally fragile. Most people believe comfort equals strength. It doesn't. Comfort makes you brittle. Avoidance weakens your emotional system the same way inactivity weakens muscle. When you avoid discomfort, your tolerance shrinks. Smaller problems feel bigger. Minor stress feels overwhelming. You have a choice. You can avoid pressure, or you can let pressure build you. Pressure builds you. Avoidance weakens you. Say it again. What anti-fragile really means. Fragile things break under stress. Resilient things resist stress. Anti-fragile things improve because of stress. Your goal is not to be calm only when life is easy. Your goal is to become stronger when life is hard. This requires exposure, controlled exposure, intentional discomfort. This is discipline. The principle of controlled emotional stress. You do not jump into chaos. You dose stress. Just like training a muscle. You lift enough weight to strain, not enough to injure. Emotionally, this looks like staying present during uncomfortable conversations, allowing frustration without escaping, facing criticism without defending, sitting with uncertainty instead of numbing it. Each exposure expands your tolerance. Each moment trains your nervous system. This is the key. Why avoidance feels good and destroys you. Avoidance gives immediate relief and long-term weakness. You avoid confrontation. You feel safe, briefly, but your fear grows. You avoid pressure. You feel calm, temporarily, but your resilience shrinks. It's not about flaws. It's about discipline. You don't need their permission to feel discomfort. How stress becomes strength. Every time you stay instead of escape, your nervous system learns. This is survivable. That lesson compounds. What once overwhelmed you becomes manageable. What once scared you becomes routine. This is how calm becomes permanent, not by hiding from stress, by outgrowing it. Real-world examples. Athletes train under fatigue. Executives make decisions under uncertainty. Leaders absorb pressure without leaking emotion. Not because they feel less, because they trained more. They didn't wait to feel ready. They exposed themselves deliberately. Your daily resilience training. This is practical. You need structure. Start small. Daily discomfort intentionally chosen. Examples. Speak when it's uncomfortable. Delay emotional gratification. Sit in silence instead of distraction. Accept criticism without explanation. Finish tasks when motivation fades. You have a choice. Each time you choose exposure, you reinforce strength. This is the key. How to know you're getting stronger. You don't need hype. You'll notice subtle signs. You recover faster. You think clearer under stress. You don't personalize everything. You don't rush to react. Your emotions still exist. They just don't control you. Stop chasing calm. Calm is not the goal. Capacity is. Calm without capacity collapses under pressure. Capacity creates calm naturally. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about expanding tolerance. That's discipline. What most people get wrong. They wait for confidence. Confidence comes after resilience. They wait to feel ready. Readiness is built through exposure. You don't need their permission. You don't need perfect conditions. You have a choice. The identity shift. At some point, something changes. You stop seeing stress as an enemy. You see it as training. You stop asking, "How do I avoid this?" You ask, "How does this build me?" That question alone rewires your life. Chapter conclusion. You now understand resilience, not as toughness, not as suppression, but as trained capacity. Pressure builds you. Avoidance weakens you. You've learned how to stop reacting. You've learned how to regulate. You've learned how to grow stronger under stress. But there's another layer, understanding why this works. What's happening inside your brain when you train resilience? Because knowledge multiplies discipline. You've built the foundation. Now let's look under the hood. Chapter 7. The Neuroscience of Reprogramming Your Emotional Responses. This chapter removes the mystery, because once you understand how your brain changes, discipline stops feeling abstract. It becomes mechanical, repeatable, predictable. This is the key. Your brain is not fixed. It is trained. Your emotional reactions are not your personality. They are patterns, and patterns are learned. Anything learned can be unlearned. Anything repeated can be rewritten. Your brain changes based on what you do consistently, not what you understand intellectually. You have a choice. You can keep rehearsing old reactions, or you can install new ones. Neural pathways, why you react automatically. Every emotional reaction you have follows a neural pathway. Think of it like a road. The more you travel it, the smoother and faster it becomes. Anger, reaction. Anxiety, avoidance. Stress, shutdown. These pathways were built through repetition. Not logic, not intention. Repetition. This is why knowing better doesn't stop reacting. Your brain fires before your thinking catches up. Why non-reaction feels unnatural at first. When you don't react, your brain panics. Not emotionally, biologically. Because you are not using the familiar road, you are forcing the brain to slow down, to pause, to choose, and the brain resists anything unfamiliar. This is normal. This is not failure. This is rewiring. What happens when you pause? The moment you pause, something critical happens. The automatic emotional circuit weakens. The thinking brain activates. This shift is measurable, literally. You are moving control from primitive survival centers to executive decision-making centers. This is the key. The reaction dies in the pause. Repetition rewires you. One pause does not change your brain. 10 pauses start to weaken the old pathway. 100 pauses build a new one. Repetition rewires you. Say it again. Repetition rewires you. Not motivation, not insight, not inspiration. Repetition. Why consistency beats intensity. People try to fix themselves emotionally with intensity. One deep realization, one powerful moment. It doesn't work. The brain doesn't care about moments. It responds to patterns. Small, consistent non-reactions beat dramatic emotional control attempts. It's not about flaws. It's about discipline. Emotional pattern extinction. There is a scientific term for what you are doing. Extinction. When a behavior stops producing its usual outcome, the brain stops reinforcing it. When anger no longer leads to reaction, anger loses power. When anxiety no longer leads to avoidance, anxiety weakens. You don't fight emotions. You starve them. This is the key. Why suppression fails. Suppression is force. Rewiring is training. When you suppress emotion, the pathway remains. It waits. When you choose non-reaction, the pathway weakens. You are not becoming numb. You are becoming intentional. You don't need their permission to pause. How long rewiring takes? This matters because unrealistic expectations cause people to quit. You will not feel different immediately. You will act differently first. The feeling follows later. Weeks of consistency, months of reinforcement. Then something shifts. Triggers lose intensity. You respond faster with clarity. This is discipline compounding. Real-world example, the email trigger. Old pathway. Email, irritation, immediate reply, regret. New pathway. Email, pause, breathe, choose response. At first, the pause feels forced. Later, it feels natural. Eventually, it feels automatic. That's rewiring. The brain rewards what you repeat. Every time you pause, your brain releases a subtle reward. Not pleasure, stability, control. This trains confidence. Not loud confidence, quiet confidence. The kind that doesn't need validation. Why identity changes last. When your reactions change consistently, your self-image updates. I am calm under pressure. I don't react emotionally. I choose strategically. Identity follows behavior, not the other way around. This is the key. Your daily neural training protocol. Simple, non-negotiable. Every trigger becomes training. Pause. Name the emotion. Choose the response. That's it. You don't need perfect execution. You need repetition. You have a choice. What most people miss, they think control is mental. It's neurological. They wait to feel calm. Calm is built after control, not before. You don't need their permission to train your brain. Chapter conclusion. Now you understand why this works. Why non-reaction changes everything. You are not fighting yourself. You are retraining your nervous system. Repetition rewires you. Every pause is progress. Every non-reaction is power. But knowledge alone is not enough, because pressure reveals everything. You can train calmly, but can you apply it when stakes are high? That's where mastery is tested. You've learned the science. Now it's time for application under fire. Chapter 8. Master non-reaction when the pressure is extreme. This is where everything is tested. Anyone can stay calm when nothing is happening. Anyone can control themselves in silence. But pressure reveals the truth. Pressure strips away personality. Pressure exposes conditioning. And under pressure, you have a choice. Why pressure breaks most people. When pressure hits, the brain reverts. Old wiring activates. Survival takes over. Heart rate spikes. Breathing shortens. Vision narrows. This is not weakness. This is biology. But discipline is learned behavior inside biology. This is the key. The illusion of urgency. Pressure always lies. It tells you, act now, say something, defend yourself, fix it immediately. Urgency hijacks logic. Most mistakes are not made because people lack intelligence. They are made because people rush reactions. Non-reaction under pressure is power. Extreme pressure scenarios. Let's be clear. Pressure comes in many forms. An argument that turns personal. A public confrontation. A critical failure. A high-stakes decision. Being insulted or challenged. Being watched, judged, evaluated. These moments feel dangerous. They are not. Your reaction is what creates damage. Every reaction has a cost. Why leaders stay calm. Watch elite performers, special forces, surgeons, CEOs under crisis. They don't move faster. They move slower. They slow the moment. This is the key. The slow the moment technique. This technique is simple, but it is not easy. When pressure spikes, you intentionally slow your internal pace. You do not match the chaos. You create space. This is how control is built. Step 1. Slow the body. The body leads the mind. Always. Under pressure, slow your breathing. Longer exhale, shorter inhale. This signals safety to the nervous system. You don't need their permission to breathe. Step 2. Narrow the focus. Pressure scatters attention. You bring it back. One task, one sentence, one decision. This is not avoidance. This is precision. This is the key. Step 3. Delay the response. You don't react immediately. You pause. Not visibly, internally. This pause is where power lives. The reaction dies in the pause. Real example: heated argument. Old pattern: insult, emotional spike, defensive response, escalation. New pattern: insult, pause, silence, controlled reply. The silence feels uncomfortable. That discomfort is discipline forming. It's not about ego. It's about discipline. Why silence is a weapon. Silence unnerves reactive people because silence signals control. You don't explain. You don't justify. You don't rush. You don't need their permission to be silent. This is high-level calm. Public pressure and judgment. Being watched amplifies emotion. People panic because they feel exposed. Here's the truth. No one is watching as closely as you think. And even if they are, control commands respect. Non-reaction communicates authority. Failure moments. Failure creates urgency. Shame pushes reaction. Blame wants expression. You pause. You slow the moment. You choose the next step. This is how leaders recover. This is the key. Why slowing down feels wrong. It feels wrong because it's unfamiliar. Chaos feels normal to untrained minds. Calm under pressure feels unnatural at first. Then it becomes your edge. Repetition rewires you. Training extreme calm daily. You don't wait for crisis to practice. You train in small moments. Don't respond immediately to messages. Pause before replying. Breathe before speaking. Let silence stretch. These are micro reps. Pressure training starts small. Your pressure response protocol. When pressure hits, breathe slowly. Say nothing first. Decide intentionally. That's it. Simple, powerful, repeatable. You have a choice. What most people never learn. They think pressure demands speed. It doesn't. Pressure demands control. Speed without control creates regret. Control creates options. This is the key. Identity shift under pressure. Eventually, something changes. You become the calm one, the one others look to, the one who doesn't panic. Not because you suppress emotion, but because you master it. Chapter conclusion. Pressure is not your enemy. It is your proving ground. When you slow the moment, you control the moment. Every pause builds authority. Every non-reaction builds strength. This is discipline in its purest form. But control alone is not enough, because the goal is not just calm. The goal is confidence. Unshakable confidence, built from emotional mastery. You've learned to control pressure. Now it's time to see what that control builds inside you. Chapter 9. Turn negative emotions into fuel and power. Most people are fighting the wrong battle. They try to eliminate negative emotions. They try to suppress them. They try to numb them. That's the mistake. Negative emotions are not the enemy. Misused emotions are. This is the key. The lie you were taught about emotions. You were taught that anger is bad, fear is weakness, sadness is failure. That's wrong. Emotion is energy, and energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be redirected. You have a choice. Why suppression always backfires. When you suppress emotion, it leaks. It leaks into passive aggression, into burnout, into self-sabotage. Suppressed emotion becomes uncontrolled behavior. This is not discipline. It's avoidance. It's not about flaws. It's about discipline. Elite performers do something different. High-level performers don't suppress emotion. They convert it. Athletes don't eliminate anger. They channel it into intensity. Entrepreneurs don't eliminate fear. They channel it into preparation. Leaders don't eliminate pressure. They channel it into focus. This is the key. Emotional transmutation explained. Transmutation means conversion. Raw emotion, directed action. Emotion is fuel. Fuel needs direction. Without direction, it burns you. With direction, it drives you. You don't need their permission to redirect your emotions. Anger, focus. Anger is misunderstood. Anger is not violence. Anger is energy seeking expression. Most people explode with it. Disciplined people aim it. When anger arises, don't react outward. Redirect inward. Ask one question. What needs to be built right now? That's the key. Real example. Anger, someone disrespects you. Old pattern. React. Argue. Escalate. Regret. New pattern. Pause. Breathe. Channel. You train harder. You work deeper. You sharpen focus. Non-reaction turns anger into fuel. Fear. Preparation. Fear is not weakness. Fear is data. Fear shows you where preparation is missing. Most people run from fear. Disciplined people listen to it. You have a choice. Real example. Fear. You're anxious about a presentation. Old pattern. Avoid. Delay. Escape. New pattern. Prepare more. Practice more. Refine more. Fear didn't disappear. It was used. This is the key. Sadness, clarity. Slows you down. That's not a flaw. That's a feature. Sadness forces reflection. Most people numb sadness. Disciplined people extract insight. It's not about pain. It's about discipline. Using sadness correctly. When sadness appears, don't scroll, don't distract, don't numb. Sit with it. Ask, what truth is being shown to me? Clarity lives here. Shame, precision. Shame is dangerous when uncontrolled, but powerful when redirected. Shame points to misalignment, not who you are, but how you acted. Disciplined people don't collapse under shame. They refine behavior. That's the key. The emotional conversion framework. Every emotion asks one question. What action does this energy demand? Anger, focus. Fear, preparation. Sadness, clarity. Shame, precision. Emotion is energy. Energy can be redirected. Repeat that. Why most people stay weak. They externalize emotion. They vent. They blame. They explode. Externalization wastes energy. Internal direction builds power. You don't need their permission to grow silently. Daily practice. Emotional redirection. This is a skill. You train it. Daily. When emotion arises, name it. Pause. Redirect. No drama. No story. No reaction. This is discipline. Why this builds mental toughness. Mental toughness is not emotional numbness. It's emotional command. You feel fully, but you act intentionally. This is the difference between strength and chaos. This is the key. Identity shift. Eventually, something changes. You stop fearing emotions. You stop fighting them. You start using them. Emotion no longer controls you. You control it. You have a choice. The silent advantage. Others burn energy reacting. You accumulate energy redirecting. Others collapse emotionally. You convert pressure into progress. This is quiet discipline. This is power without noise. Chapter conclusion. Negative emotions are not obstacles. They are resources. When directed, they build focus. They build clarity. They build strength. Emotion is energy. Energy can be redirected. That is the discipline. But emotion alone doesn't build confidence. Confidence is built through mastery over time. And that's where this journey leads next. You've learned to control. You've learned to redirect. Now it's time to become unshakable. Chapter 10. Build unshakable confidence through emotional mastery. Chapter 10. Build unshakable confidence through emotional mastery. Most people misunderstand confidence. They think confidence is loud. They think confidence is hype. They think confidence is motivation, charisma, or positive thinking. That's wrong. Confidence is control. This is the key. Why most confidence is fake. Fake confidence needs validation. Fake confidence needs approval. Fake confidence collapses under pressure. It reacts, it defends, it over-explains. Real confidence does none of that. Real confidence stays calm. You have a choice. Calm is the highest status signal in every room. Notice this. When pressure rises, who reacts? Who gets loud? Who gets emotional? Who loses control? And who stays steady? Calm people command attention without asking. They don't need their permission. This is not arrogance. This is discipline. Confidence is built internally. Confidence is not something you feel first. It's something you prove to yourself. Every time you control your response, you send a signal inward. I can be trusted. Control yourself. Trust yourself. Repeat that. Why emotional mastery creates self-trust. Self-trust comes from consistency. If you explode, avoid, panic, or overreact, your mind learns one thing. You are unreliable under pressure. But when you pause, when you choose, when you don't react, you build internal credibility. This is the key, the confidence loop. Here's how it works. Control, trust, calm, confidence. Not motivation, not affirmations, not hype. Discipline. It's not about personality. It's about discipline. Real example, social pressure. Someone challenges you publicly. Old pattern. Defend. Justify. Prove. New pattern. Pause. Calm. Silence. You don't react. And suddenly, the power shifts. You have a choice. Why non-reaction signals strength? Non-reaction says, I am not threatened. I don't need to explain. I trust my position. That's confidence. Loud reactions signal insecurity. Silence signals control. This is the key. Confidence in relationships. Most relationship problems are emotional reactions, defensiveness, jealousy, over-explaining, emotional chasing. Confidence removes all of it. You respond intentionally or not at all. You don't need their permission to stay grounded. Confidence at work. Under pressure, people watch one thing: how you respond. Not what you say. Not your credentials. Your emotional control. Calm leaders get promoted. Reactive ones get managed. Calm is confidence. The internal shift that changes everything. Eventually, something happens. You stop asking, how do I look? What do they think? Am I enough? You start asking, what is the correct response? This is mastery. Why calm is unshakable. Calm doesn't depend on outcomes. Calm doesn't depend on praise. Calm doesn't depend on control of others. It only depends on one thing. You. You have a choice. The end of emotional gambling. Most people gamble emotionally. They hope situations go well so they can feel confident. Disciplined people reverse it. They stay controlled regardless. Confidence becomes stable. This is the key. Daily confidence practice. This is not theory. This is daily behavior. Practice these rules. Pause before responding. Lower your voice. Slow your movements. Say less. Choose deliberately. Confidence is trained. Why silence builds authority. Silence gives you time. Clarity gives you precision. Precision builds trust. This is discipline. Identity shift. You stop trying to impress. You stop proving. You stop reacting. You become steady. Others feel it. You don't announce confidence. You demonstrate it. What unshakable confidence really feels like? It's quiet. It's grounded. It's calm under pressure. You feel emotions, but they don't drive. You drive. Control yourself. Trust yourself. The final truth: confidence is not added. It's revealed. It emerges when reactions stop, when discipline replaces impulse, when choice replaces instinct. This is the power of not reacting. Final conclusion: you've learned the truth most people never learn. Emotions are not commands. They are signals. Reaction is optional. Control is power. You have a choice. Every moment, every trigger, every situation. This is the key. It's not about flaws. It's about discipline. And discipline creates freedom. When you stop reacting, you start leading. And once you master that, no situation controls you again. You are no longer the person who reacts without thinking. You are no longer controlled by fear, anger, anxiety, or impulse. You have learned how to pause, how to breathe, how to choose. And that choice is everything. Because power is not in emotion. Power is in control. Power is in the space between what happens and how you respond. Power is in the stillness you have built, the resilience you've earned, and the discipline you now embody. From this moment forward, you do not react. You respond. You do not break. You focus. You do not collapse. You rise. You own your emotions. You own your decisions. You own your life. Now the challenge: take what you learned here and use it today. Not tomorrow, not someday. Prove to yourself that you are in control. The next time emotion hits you, pause, feel it, and choose power over impulse. Your new life starts in that pause.